Hello, my name is Bev Bear. I'm the old codger. This old codger has made 8 YouTube films to this point in time. The first film detailed a little of my childhood, how I drove overland from Sydney to London in 1970, how I met my wife Bev Bear, and we bought a VW Beetle car in Munich and camped and travelled around Europe and the Middle East in the middle of winter, how we built a mud brick house, how we set up a ceramics business, and how we turned to bikepacking in 2014 as a mode of transport. Before going on with the practicalities of making a concertina book, I should tell you that Bev and I belong to the Wander Society, and in the Wander Society recommendations it suggests you make your own notebook. I like to think my concertina books are my Wander Society notebooks. Before we go on and make my version of a Wanderers Society notebook, my concertina book, I should like to explain to you a bit more about the Wanderers Society. The society was conceived by an American by the name of Walt Whitman in the 19th century. He encouraged people to travel with an open creative mind and record, draw and leave symbols behind when they travel. I might say at this point no one knows who belongs to the society. It is completely anonymous. The only way you know a fellow wanderer has crossed your path is if you come across a wanderer's symbol as you wander. Some years ago I was given a book called The Wanderers Society by Kerry Smith, and in the book she describes the semi-fictional secret society. Also in the book there are assignments on how to make a neck pouch and a Wander notebook. I like to think my concertina books are my Wander Society notebooks. Bev and I have been following the Wander Society creed for years, even well before I was given the book. And it also suggests you do random painting, including painting with crushed flowers, dirt, coffee, tea and grass. Of utmost importance is leave symbols wherever you can. I have 8 con books, as I call them, and I often go through them and have a nostalgic wandering journey. This folding book, in which we recorded our 2019 wanderings, is probably one of the most detailed I've made, and many fellow wanderers signed, left messages and did drawings in it. The idea is to let the hand flow, draw and record everything, even in our case the insects that crawled across my book or got in my eyes. Leave no stone unturned. Even creative graffiti attracts me. In one camping area in France we met a young lad who was walking from France to Norway, and he wrote in my book, "It was the first day of my trip to Norway and it could not have begun more surprisingly. You two gave me the feeling that this journal would be wonderful, and I hope yours will continue like this. Thanks for the baguette." In Redon, France, we went to a cafe and asked the owner where the closest camping area was. Arsene, the owner, immediately closed his cafe and escorted us to the camping. We followed behind his car for around 4 kilometres. In Schaffhausen, Switzerland, we met a family who were riding their bikes from France to Budapest, 2,000 kilometres to the west. The family comprised twin boys and a 9-year-old daughter. They had a unique setup for travelling. They rode tandems. One of the twins shared a tandem with the mother and the second shared a similar bike with the father. The daughter was riding her own bike. She was 9 years old. The twins wrote a story in my concertina book. At times I record events for no particular reason. I do it because I love to draw. In Austria one sees references to Hundertwasser, an Austrian artist and architect. Hundertwasser stood out as an opponent of a straight line. I copied a few of his paintings direct into my wandering concertina book. On one occasion I was almost struck by lightning. The event is recorded in my concertina book. The strike disorientated the battery on my bike, so from then on I used Bev's battery and towed her up steep Dieppe coastal hills. The battery came good 4 days later and we continued our wanderings to the Czech Republic. Having travellers sign my book is a reward in itself. On this occasion a young French boy signed my book and explained how to pronounce his name. So what is your name?
Romain.
How do you spell that?
It's like R-O-M-A-I-N. In France, it's Romain. But for the Australian people and all the British people, it's Romain. Because the first letter, like R, it's like so hard to say.
Okay.
I say nice to meeting you in this small camping and good luck for the next.
And now I think we should get down to showing you how to make a wandering notebook, or at least my version of it. The first thing you have to do is get a roll of watercolour paper around 8 to 10 metres long. Its length depends how long you want your book to be. The roll of paper wants to be about 1 metre wide and around 160 GSM. GSM, grams per square metre, defines the weight or the thickness of the paper. It's possible to make a book with short sections of paper, but you have to join the sections, which I find a bit unsightly. Of course, you can make a book any size you like. It depends on the end use needs. The next step is to cut from the roll a blank to the height of the size of the book you want. Wrap a piece of dark coloured paper around the roll and tape it securely in position. The edge of the dark paper is your cutting guide. The next step is to cut from the roll a blank to the height of the size of the book you want. Now take to the roll with a thin bladed metal cutting disc in an angle grinder, taking care not to go off the line, and you'd be surprised it won't catch on fire. You are now ready to apply the colour to your paper. Spread the roll along a bench. You will note I folded the end of the paper over the end of the bench. This fold is a 0 point when it comes to scoring the folds along the blank. Be sure to have the paper aligned with the edge of the bench, as you'll be squaring off the folds from this edge. Now the fun part starts, the laying on of the colour. You have the choice of using watercolour paints or acrylic paint. I use acrylic paints as they come in larger tubes and are less expensive than watercolour. But watercolour paints run into each other, creating interesting effects. The choice is yours. Lay on the various colours the whole length of the paper roll. Depending on how long your work table is will determine how many times you have to do this operation. I usually put blue along the top to represent the sky, then green, yellow and a touch of dark grey along the bottom. If you want to have dark portions, you can work direct from the tube. If you get too much paint on, rub it off with your hands or go along and dab it with a tissue. After letting the blank dry, you are now ready to mark with a pencil the positions of the scores where the foals will be. If your book is say 150 millimeters wide, you need to mark the score positions every 150 millimeters apart. For example, 150, 300, 450, 600 and so on to the end of the roll. You will be scoring and folding the paper at these points. Now with your blank piece of paper dry, tape it down, making sure it's parallel and flush with the edge of the bench. You're going to score the paper with a knife. I have a knife here that's had the sharp edge ground off that I'm going to use. You've now got the grooves marked 150 millimeters apart where the folds are going to be. The next thing you do is you are going to fold the book along the scores or the marks. What you don't do is put the grooves in before you apply the paint, because if you do, the paint runs along the groove and weakens it. So be sure you do the scoring when the paper is absolutely dry. Now it's time to put the cover on. You have the choice of a soft cover made from material or a plywood cover. If you choose the plywood cover, it adds a little more weight. That's if you can afford to carry a bit more weight. But it's easy to clean and it doesn't get dog-eared like the soft covered one. If you choose the soft covered one, I will now show you how to put it on. You need to cut a piece of art card a little bigger than the first page of the book, about 5 millimeters bigger. Once you have the card cut to size, you need to glue the foam padding to the card, then glue the cloth to the card and foam. Put it on the cloth like so and cut it about 20 millimeters bigger all round. The next thing you do is glue material to the card. Pull it tight and put a dab of glue on the corners. The next step is to attach the first page of your book to the cover, and to do this put glue over the whole of the cover. Don't go too close to the edge, as when we put weights on, which we're going to do in a minute, the weights will stick to it. Now align the first fold of the edge of the cover and place the page on the glue. If there is any glue out past the edge of the page, wipe it off with a bit of rag. And now I'm going to put a piece of board on and a couple of heavy bricks which will hold the cover end together while the glue dries. Of course you have to do this at both ends of the roll. When you think the glue is dry, remove the weights and you have the makings of a concertina book. What's important is to align the first fold with the edge of the cover, this edge. If you put it 5mm in, like the other 3 edges, it doesn't sit properly unless you extend it. Parents, this is a good project to do with your children, the making of my version of a Wanderer Society notebook. You never know, they might become wanderers. They might even join the Wanderer Society. Having your kids wander, draw, collect, leave and make things has to be better than the screen.